Welcome, I'm Ananya Dutt and I'm back with another edition of Race to Power. A lot has happened over the weekend. Here's a glimpse. It was a surprise all the way from France. With far right looking to come to power, the far left has finished right at the top. The question now being asked is, where does this leave President Emmanuel Macron's party? In the United States, the voters said too soon when President Joe Biden made a joke about his age. No time for more jokes. This week looks hectic for the 81-year-old US president. France was in for a surprise after weeks of expecting a far-right win. The other extreme end of the spectrum, the far-left alliance, has come on the top. The new Popular Front has become the biggest force in the French parliament with 182 seats, followed by Emmanuel Macron's centrist alliance at 168 seats and the far right in third place with 143 seats. Remember, this is the same party that came first in the first round of elections. Despite placing third, the results were historic for the national rally. The far right party had just 88 seats in the earlier parliament. The party wasn't expected to win an absolute majority even in the opinion polls, but it was still expected to come at the top of the list. And that was until the left and centre agreed to a pre-poll strategy. The two factions asked their third-place candidates to step down, remember, and that didn't let the anti-right votes from dividing, and hence shaping up the new parliament.
The quagmire that I warned about has of course come true. France will be totally blocked with three groups that have more or less the same influence in the National Assembly. Well, we are going towards that. It's sad. We're losing one more year of unregulated immigration, one more year of losing purchasing power, one more year of blowing up of insecurity in our country. But if we need to go through that, then we'll go through that.
And with that, the future is looking quite uncertain for France. The parliament is likely to be divided into three major blocs: the left, centrists and the far right. With no one reaching the majority mark of 289, France is staring at a hung parliament. It could now take weeks to establish a government. Emmanuel Macron is still going to be the president because in France, parliamentary and presidential elections take place separately. Macron still has about 3 more years in office, and according to France's constitution, the president chooses the prime minister. Centrist Gabriel Attal had taken office just this January but offered to resign after his party lost the majority in this election. However, with no party or alliance with the majority, Macron has asked Attal to stay on as the prime minister, at least for the time being. It is unclear who will become the next prime minister at the moment. The left alliance, however, is expected to name their prime ministerial candidate later this week.
Our country is experiencing an unprecedented political situation and is preparing to welcome the world in a couple of weeks. That said, I will of course do my duties as long as it's needed. It cannot be otherwise on the eve of a date that is so important for our country.
Now, the political uncertainty mirrored the situation on the streets. Protesters gathered after Sunday's elections just like the first round. Supporters from the far right clashed with the hard left. Fireworks were also set off, following which police fired tear gas to disperse the crowd. Now, amid fear of political uncertainty, listen into how the French have reacted to the election mandate.
The same happened at the presidential elections. First, RN was leading and then it didn't happen. It's because France doesn't like the extremes. Let's hope Mélenchon won't become the prime minister, because people are afraid of far left and far right. At least I'm afraid of it. Let's see what's next.
I think the situation is worrying everyone at the moment. But what's more worrying is the fact that the state doesn't necessarily respect the lives of the French people by adopting certain strategies to create blocs, etc. In the end, the National Assembly today doesn't necessarily represent the vote of the French people, but simply represents a state strategy.
In my opinion, the various parties should be able to. We can see that there is some sort of equality in the various results. They should create projects together and move forward together, because it shows that France is fairly evenly divided.
Worried because a number of things have been announced, notably the Popular Front platform. We'll see whether they're applied or not, but there are certain measures that are simply unthinkable. On paper, raising the minimum wage to 1,600 euros net per month might satisfy some people. In practice, for companies, it's simply unworkable. It's a 15% increase in the minimum wage in one fell swoop.
All right, now Europe was looking at the elections in France very closely, and here's how world leaders reacted to the mandate in France. Polish Prime Minister expressed his happiness on far right's loss in the elections. Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that the results made Warsaw quote-unquote happy, resulting in disappointment for Russia and relief in Ukraine. Spanish Prime Minister hailed France's rejection of the far right. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said that France opted a social left that tackles people's problems with serious and brave policies. The European Commissioner for Economy expressed his happiness with the French expression that translates to "Long live Republic." While the left has surpassed the count of the right and the centrist, it is far short of the 289 seats needed to control the assembly, which means France at present is staring at a hung parliament. While not uncommon in other European countries, remember, modern France has never had a legislature with no dominant party. All right, let's shift focus now. The clock is ticking for US President Joe Biden. The Democratic National Convention is drawing closer. Murmurs within the blue camp are growing against the incumbent leader. Biden now faces a critical week ahead. The leader has sent a letter to his party's lawmakers insisting that he will continue the presidential race. But much needs to be done to convince his party representatives and voters alike that he can serve another term in the White House. Here's a report.
On campaign stops in the battleground state of Pennsylvania on Sunday, embattled U.S. President Joe Biden worked to ease mounting concerns from fellow Democrats about his candidacy. The 81-year-old has faced growing calls to end his re-election bid after a shaky debate performance against Republican Donald Trump in late June, which raised questions about his ability to do the job for another 4 years. Biden has vowed to stay in the race, and in a fundraising email on Saturday, he dismissed calls for him to drop out as nonsense. The Democratic president received a warm welcome at a black church in Philadelphia, and during a 6-minute speech joked about his age.
Folks, I know with every fiber of my being, I know I'm going to look like I'm 40 years old, but I've been around a little bit.
Black voters are a critical part of Biden's base, but recent public opinion polling has shown their support for him waning.
While there are those who want to erase history, Kamala and I want to make it, because black history is American history.
Biden later traveled to the state capital Harrisburg for an event with union members. Asked there if the Democratic Party was behind him, Biden told reporters yes. However, on a leadership call the same day by House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, a source familiar with the discussions told Reuters that some House Democrats said that Biden should step aside as presidential candidate. House Democratic sources have said 2 letters are circulating among House Democrats calling for Biden to withdraw. And on Sunday, Democratic National Committee member Alan Clendenin joined calls for Biden to leave, saying, quote, "This election is about the next 4 years, not the last 3.5. The DNC has steadfastly supported Biden since his debate stumbles, so any defections could suggest a deepening of the crisis. DNC Chair Jamie Harrison, meanwhile, said that Biden remains the party's nominee. Democrats have suggested that Vice President Kamala Harris, seen as the likeliest candidate to replace Biden in the November election were he to bow out, could perform well.
And then if it's President Biden, if it's someone else he chooses, which I'm certain, personally, if the president didn't run, he would humbly ask the vice president to step in, who has been extraordinary. If people made that choice in his circle, that's up to them. But he earned our nomination, and certainly he's earned our respect also. From my perspective as a young governor, new to the job, I'm 19 months in, I kind of think if a person has spent their whole life serving, they ought to be able to make up their own mind. And I respect that. We'll probably know in the next couple of days how the president feels about all this.
And to get us the latest, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live from New York. Susan, good to see you as always. The Friday sit-down interview of Joe Biden was supposed to be a sort of a cleanup act for the president after the debacle that happened at the presidential debate. But it seems like the needle did not really move, did it?
Yeah, that's such an accurate assessment. It seems like every time he's put in a situation as an interview after that debate or in front of the public, things just seem to be getting worse. And the reason for that is because there's so much scrutiny now. I mean, this is all people are talking about. No one's talking about the issues that are most important to Americans. Everyone's just concerned about what to do with Joe Biden. I do want to say that just before I came on air, we learned that after that telephone call between Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, and some Democrats on Sunday, today, which is Monday, President Biden sent a defiant letter to Congress saying that he's not going anywhere. He's going to be the candidate, and he's not taking these calls seriously. He also called into one of the networks here, MSNBC, in the morning programs, and he echoed that same message. Nonetheless, we've talked about how this coming week is going to be detrimental for the president. You have NATO leaders gathering here in Washington. The White House has promised a solo press conference by President Biden, and then ultimately he wants to hit the campaign trail. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see if he's going to sit down and try to make a different decision. But as for now, it seems the campaign just is ongoing, and President Biden doesn't want to go anywhere.
Absolutely, Susan. You rightly pointed out this is all that people have been talking, not just in America, but across the globe, of course. And no one's talking about Donald Trump since the presidential debate. Maybe no attention is good attention right now for Donald Trump. What's happening with the Red Camp?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to some of the Republicans on Sunday morning shows talk about the situation, and they were saying that, we're just sitting back and we're watching the Democrats basically just go at one another with this division that's happened within the party about supporting President Biden and not supporting him, and this situation that they've put themselves in. And, just like the rest of us, they're just watching to see what will happen next. They don't want to get involved. They think that this is a situation that will only weaken President Biden moving forward. And, like he said, they're very happy that the focus is actually on the president right now and not their candidate.
All right, Susan, thank you so much for getting us all those updates from New York. Let's focus to the United Kingdom now. It's only 2 days since Keir Starmer became UK's Prime Minister, but the Labour Party leader has already made strides on the diplomatic front. And it seems that the ongoing war in Gaza is one of the key agendas for the Prime Minister. On Sunday, Starmer called on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, stressing on the urgent need for a ceasefire in Gaza. According to reports, Starmer also had a telephonic conversation with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, backing the need for a two-state solution as a right of the Palestinian people. The Labour stance on the war-induced humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza has been more decisive since Starmer became the new resident of 10 Downing. During Conservative leader Rishi Sunak's tenure, Starmer was accused of not calling for an immediate ceasefire. Rather, he towed the same line as then Prime Minister, backing the call for a humanitarian pause. It was only in February that Starmer called for a ceasefire after mounting pressure. This is not the only change in how UK's government is now positioned with respect to the Israel-Hamas war. As per the latest reports, the Labour Party is also expected to drop the challenge to the International Criminal Court over an arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu. Labour officials say that the party believes that the Hague-based court has jurisdiction over Gaza. The Labour stance is in complete contrast to the Conservative government's position. In a bid to delay the arrest warrant case, the Sunak-led Tories had claimed the ICC did not have jurisdiction over Israeli nationals. It now remains to be seen how the change in UK's position impacts a ceasefire and a hostage release deal, and the crippling crisis in Gaza that's being played out as we speak. Now, Iran has voted and given a clear mandate to a reformist leader, Masoud Pezeshkian. But winning an election is just the beginning for the president-elect. And as per state media, Pezeshkian will be sworn in as the new president in early August. This after he receives an official endorsement from the supreme leader. Following the oath-taking, he would then have 15 days to present his proposed ministers to the parliament for a vote of confidence. Pezeshkian and his new government face a slew of huge challenges. On this list will be easing tensions over stalled negotiations with world powers on reviving the 2015 nuclear deal. Iran is also now tasked with promoting a pragmatic foreign policy and increasing prospects of bringing in social liberation. Economic issues owing to mismanagement and ensuing sanctions in 2018 after the fallout of the US-Iran nuclear deal are a huge ask. Unlike other nations, Iran's president is only second in command to the supreme leader, who in this case is hardliner Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The duties and areas of jurisdiction are divided between the president and the supreme leader, and as president, Pezeshkian will be able to exercise influence over foreign policy and domestic policy as well. The president's responsibility also included setting Iran's economic policy. On the other hand, it is the supreme leader who exercises power over the police, army, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This limits the influence that the president has over military and other security forces. Let's shift focus to India now, where Congress leader Rahul Gandhi visited Manipur for the third time. This is his first official visit as the leader of the opposition. Gandhi visited 3 relief camps in the northeastern state that still faces tensions after a year-long ethnic violence gripped the state. Addressing a press conference later in the evening, the senior leader highlighted the need for peace in the region.
I visited the camps and heard the people there, heard their pain. I came here to listen to them, to build confidence in them, and as somebody who's in the opposition, to try and apply pressure on the government so that it acts.
A rather interesting image is coming in from India. Speaking about being high on power was on full display in southern Indian state of Karnataka. People queued up in orderly fashion to collect a bottle of booze. The liquor was apparently organized by one BJP MP in celebration of his Lok Sabha win from the constituency. Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka, who is from the Congress party, attacked the BJP. But the people who got the free booze aren't complaining. Now the news. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is on a self-proclaimed Ukraine peace mission since Hungary assumed the EU's rotating presidency at the start of this month. In the past several days, he has been engaged in hectic parleys. In the latest, he made a surprise visit to Beijing. Orban's surprise visit to China follows recent trips to Russia and Ukraine to discuss peace prospects during the war. Orban dubbed his visit Peace Mission 3.0 in one of his social media platforms. He was greeted in Beijing by Chinese Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and other officials. Chinese state broadcaster CCTV reported that Orban met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. In another social media post on Facebook, Orban stated that ending the war in Ukraine depends not only on Russia and Ukraine, but also on decisions by the United States, the European Union, as well as China. The string of important state visits have raised several questions. As mentioned earlier, his unannounced visit followed recent trips to Moscow and Kiev, where he suggested Ukraine consider an immediate ceasefire with Russia. His Moscow visit drew criticism from Kiev and European leaders. Orban noted that the number of countries able to communicate with both warring sides is shrinking, positioning Hungary as potentially the only European nation capable of engaging with all parties. Amid the frenzy over his visit to Moscow, Orban had also launched a scathing attack on NATO. He said that NATO is pursuing war, not peace. Unexpectedly, this comment irked the European Union and NATO allies. Russian President Vladimir Putin has suggested that Orban's visit to Moscow was in his capacity as a top representative of the European Council. However, that claim was dismissed by several top European officials who stated Orban had no mandate beyond discussing bilateral relations. The Hungarian Prime Minister is expected to head to Washington next for the three-day NATO summit, which will mark the military alliance's 75th anniversary. The issue of providing further aid to Ukraine is expected to be on top of the agenda at the summit. On being asked about his latest state visit, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg had earlier said, and I'm quoting, "I expect when Viktor Orban is in Washington at the NATO summit next week, there will be opportunities to discuss and address the discussions he had in Moscow." And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Ananya Datta. Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Namaste. Hello, friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to start again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Not going back to ECOWAS. We are better alone. Sahel military chiefs mark divorce from West African bloc ECOWAS, with the organization opening a parallel summit amid political turmoil in the region. Parents and civil society groups in Kenya sound the alarm over the rise in abduction of protesters following the anti-government protests that left more than 35 people dead. And Palestinian karate champion Maiz El-Bostami hopes to accomplish her dream of representing her home Gaza in international competitions, starting with her new home, Egypt. Wild of Africa, at these times, on WION, Wild is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.